I was going through an old box of stuff, and I found this gadget in there that I've had for at least 20 years, maybe 25. I was going to toss it, and I just jumped on the internet and did a little research and found out that there's actually quite a following that collect this unit. Hasn't been made in many years since the founder and owner of the company passed away, but it's high in demand. Let's check this out. They're quite rare. This is something that most people have never seen. You've all seen these things. LED flashlights, lots of them. This is the one that started the whole revolution. This is called a PALlight, and this lamp is, I've had this at least 20 years, maybe longer. I forget when I got this thing. It was about 20 bucks when I got it, and basically what it does is, well, it works with a 9-volt battery. Has a little stainless steel clip here to hold it together. You just press it down. The clip comes off. It's waterproof, drop-proof, shock-proof. And when you pop it apart, it just snaps onto the top of the battery. Now, if we take this unit apart here, which we can, it will come apart. You'll find it. It's got a little inverter board in here, and the little LED driver and a lens. It's kind of beat up because I carried this thing in my pocket for many, many years. It was great to have before we had LED lights on our cell phones, right? Back in the day when a cell phone was just a cell phone, it didn't have a camera, it didn't have a light on it or anything. I used to use this thing when I was working. And it's actually quite bright. Now, the new ones have certainly gotten a lot brighter, but for the time, this was incredibly bright. It's a single LED. Let's get a close-up of the driver circuitry so you can see just what was required to drive these early LED lights. As you can see, there's quite a bit going on in this thing. What do we got in here for chips? I'm just trying to light this thing so you guys can see it a bit better. That looks like a, hard to read the number there, it looks like an M. What is that, M31? An M317L chip. Don't know what that does. We can look that up if it's possible. It's got a P930, or P93S. See, these could be custom chips too, right? That one looks like, this almost looks like a Phillips chip, doesn't it? TLHEF4060B. All these are just there to drive that LED. And of course a switch to turn it on and off. Let's put a battery on it and see whether this thing actually does anything. It should work. So the battery only goes on one way. As you can see, it has the battery connector built in, so you snap a battery on here and it lights up dim. And this is what this does. It always runs. It never turns off. This will run for over a year in this dim state. The thought behind that is if you've got this thing sitting in a room and the power goes out, you're always able to find your flashlight in the dark. So they get the power consumption down to the point where this thing here basically draws probably about as much power as self-discharge on the battery, because, I mean, well, maybe not quite that, but the power consumption is very, very low. You press the power switch on the side, and it goes up to brightness, full brightness. And it only has 2 modes, and by today's standards, this is not considered to be a super bright flashlight, but with the lens on there, it actually gives you enough light that you can see what you're doing for a small light. Let's compare it. We'll compare it to a couple of the other ones here, and my other 2 that are sitting in here, and these ones aren't even real throwers, but they'll put this to shame. But let's put the reflector back on, and then we'll see what this thing will actually do. So when I put the reflector on here, it just pops on the top like this, and then you get more of a focused light. Let's see what this thing does. So of course in the dark you can see it. It doesn't throw off any usable light. I think it's probably equivalent to the Firefly mode on a lot of these other ones. So here's the Firefly mode on my other one. As you can see, the Firefly mode on the other one is actually brighter than this one. If I turn this one into high power mode, there it is in high power mode. As you can see, this other little one here, the Firefly mode is not much dimmer. And if I crank up this other one, you'll see that the next mode up is actually brighter. And then, well, so by comparison to today's flashlights, this thing is out of focus. That's what it is. This thing is pretty pale by comparison. But in its day, this flashlight gave you enough light to, you know, see where you were going, and that was about it. You could see the ground in front of you. You could see what was around you, but it wasn't something that would throw more than a few feet. I'll point it at the wall so you can see how really weak this thing is. Okay, there's the wall. The only light that's illuminating right now is from my CRT security cameras that are running, and if I turn them off, there'll be virtually no light in here. Now there's just the glow from my LCD, and you don't see anything. When I turn on this light, okay, you can probably barely see the test pattern chart there that I'm zoomed in on, or sort of zoomed in on. We'll zoom the camera in a little closer here on this thing, if I can find the zoom control. Remember, I'm in the dark here, so I think one of the kids found a new whistle. So this is full power on this little piece of crap. That is Firefly mode off of my other light here. This is the Firefly mode here. So there's Firefly mode. That's full power. If I go up to the next power level, here's the second power level up on my other little flashlight. And then as you can see, well, right, no comparison. And then we'll go back to that. So it's pretty lame for an LED light. It's just enough light to barely see where you are. But in the event of a blackout, it's going to do the job. And because the battery will last for several years in standby, and when I used this thing, I got more than a year out of a battery, and I used to use it on and off, right? I used to use the thing when I was looking for something in the dark, but I carried it in my pocket before cell phones had flashlights in them. Anyway, there it is. I was just using this little BLF special edition, which is not, you know, it's a fairly bright light. It's certainly not the brightest ones I've got. This is one of the smaller ones that I have. That I usually clip this one onto my. This is the one I clip onto my magnifier HUD when I put it on, because I can clip this right to the side of it and see what I'm doing. Anyway, this thing, as I said, I'm not going to leave the battery in this thing because there's no point in running out a good battery for something I'm never going to use. So we'll just pop this thing apart and pull the battery off it, and put this thing back where it came from. You know, I probably should just toss this thing in the garbage. And I was going to do that, and I thought, you know, this thing is kind of unique, though, because this is one of the first, if not the first, of the LED flashlights that actually used the driver. Bought it at the ham radio shop at least 20 years ago. And I might even look this up and see when it was around, because it was at least 20 years. Very old. I hang on to the thing just because it's kind of unique. There's probably not a lot of these things still around. Anyway, there it is. Thanks for watching.